Welcome into Fantasy Intervention. I'm Juan Pena. I'm here with James Kriess and Corey Spala, and we're going to bring you the weekly six-pack. And we're going to be bringing you 3 players on the rise and 3 players on the decline, where they're either fresh or they're skunky. And to start us off, the chef is going to give us a nice, fresh, cold one.
Hey, guys. Welcome into the weekly six-pack. And I am James Kriess. You could find me at FF_chef on Twitter. And my first cold pick of the day, my nice one that I like to get started with, is a nice, cold Chase Edmonds. In 2019, Week 7, we saw Edmonds finish as the RB1, posting 190 total yards and 3 touchdowns against the Giants. Fast forward to this past week in Week 5, Edmonds has scored 2 touchdowns in back-to-back outings for the Cardinals, with Kenyon Drake still getting the majority of the snap share. Edmonds has stayed consistent in the passing game for the Cardinals, receiving at least 4 targets in 4 out of the first 5 games, with a 78.3 catch rate, yielding 18 receptions and 129 yards through the air. This past week versus the New York Jets, Edmonds posted 20.2 fantasy points on a 44% snap share. It's clear to see that Coach Cliff Kingsbury loves the 1-2 punch with Drake and Edmonds being the better. And with the next 2 games on the schedule being Dallas and Seattle, both teams in the bottom 10 in the league for giving up fantasy points to running backs, Dallas, a measly 19.8 fantasy points per game, and Seattle, the second worst in the league, giving up 24.3 fantasy points per game. Edmonds is the handcuff that you want to own this year and going forward in Dynasty, especially with Drake on a 1-year deal for the 2020 season. Acquire Edmonds everywhere you can for the rest of 2020 and for your fantasy future.
I dig it, Chef. I dig it.
The cold one that I'm cracking up, one Derek Carr. Now, I'm kind of speaking specifically for Superflex Dynasty Leagues. So far, he's off to a tremendous start to the 2020 season. He's first in completion percentage, 4th in quarterback rating, 6th in touchdowns, 7th in total yards, 8th in yards per attempt. And to cap it off, he has only 1 interception through these 5 games, where he has led the Raiders to be 3-2, recently coming off a big win versus the Kansas City Chiefs. He is 29 years old, but the beautiful thing with quarterbacks is that they can play well into their 30s and even their early 40s. And it seems that Carr has actually been on the receiving end of a lot of disrespect. You know, it's kind of almost like when he has some weapons, he's going to produce. 2 major rookies this year, Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards, they have battled injuries, but when they both will be healthy, it'll only boost Carr. Recently, Ruggs versus the Chiefs there had that 72-yard touchdown. And then we also don't need really to speak on Waller's ability. And also Hunter Renfrow, he kind of seems very respectable for that offense too. He was a great value in recent startups, and it seems like he could be a great value to trade for before people kind of start catching on and giving him respect. But you know, Mariota, I guess the Raiders might find the Carr's replacement in the 2021 draft. You know, I'm not too sure about that. So let's pour one up for Derek Carr. Cheers.
I like it. I'll drink some of that Carr, baby.
All day. He's on fire right now for sure. And yeah, Corey, you mentioned a couple of rookies. And for my cold take, I'm going to bring out a rookie as well. And it's a popular game that was being played on Twitter recently. And it was a game called Laviska Shenault Sounds Like. Well, to me, Laviska Shenault sounds like a Belgian IPA. Just like a great IPA, Shenault is 6'2", 220-pound, big body wide receiver that packs a punch. He's versatile enough to line up at any position on the offense. Currently, he ranks 3rd in targets, 2nd in catches, and 3rd in yards among all rookie wideouts. He has seen a rise in targets from 4 in each of the first 2 weeks to 6 in weeks 3 and 4 to 8 last week. Jacksonville currently leads the league in pass play percentage at 66% and is 7th in total pass attempts. Due to the lackluster play of the Jaguars defense, game scripts are likely to remain pass-heavy in Duval. Shenault should be a weekly flex play moving forward. If you've been left with a bitter aftertaste by other receivers who are injured or underwhelming, crack open a Shenault, who is only rostered in 33% of redraft leagues, and enjoy.
Wow, Juan, that's awesome, man. I would rather have a Laviska Shenault than this next player I'm about to talk about, Nyheim Hines. Ugh. That name just sounds bad coming off of my mouth. In the wake of Marlon Mack's torn Achilles, Hines came out hot in week number 1 with 27.3 fantasy points and a snap share of at least 53%. Hines scored 2 touchdowns in that game, went for a solid 8 receptions on 8 targets for 45 yards, and finished as the RB4 in PPR formats. But since then, from weeks 2 through 5, he only scored 22.7 fantasy points. That's a sour-tasting, skunky 5.7 fantasy points per game, putting him behind players like Chris Thompson, Jalen Richard, and even Dion Lewis. Ooh. In that time frame, that 53% snap share that we saw in week 1 is now a distant memory and has dwindled down by at least 25% in each of the last 4 games. This past week, in a game where the Colts were trailed by at least 7 points with 6 minutes remaining in the second quarter, Hines only had 38% of the snap share and recorded only 2 receptions for 22 yards, 18 of which came on the last play of the game in junk time. Needless to say, he hasn't been the Eckler that we drafted for, that we filled up our pint glass. Yeah. With Phillip Rivers being there in Indy in 2020, we had all the hope in the world. But with Jonathan Taylor securely in the driver's seat for the foreseeable future in Indy, it's time to pour Nyheim Hines down the drain.
Another one that we got to pour down the drain, one Tyler Higbee. Higbee was announced the next big thing at tight end following his historic finish to the 2019 season. This is where he is the only tight end to have 84 or more receiving yards in 5 straight games. Fast forward here to the 2020 season. The first 5 games have brought him 17 targets, 15 receptions, 166 yards, and 3 touchdowns. However, over the last 3 games, Higbee has 48 routes and only 8 targets. Conversely, the other tight end, Everett, he has 34 routes and 6 targets. That's only 2 targets less. 58.6% of Higbee's fantasy points have come from week 2, where he scored those 3 touchdowns. I kind of wonder if the previous years of data could have predicted this. It only took Everett to go down with an injury for Higbee to benefit, only about 4 years into his playing career last year in 2019. But I guess it's a good thing that Higbee is a better blocking tight end, though. I mean, it makes his snap percentage a little bit higher. Higbee is not a tight end 1 while Everett is healthy, plain and simple. Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are too much of a factor, and with Everett healthy, it's time to pour this skunk beard down the drain.
I dig it.
Yeah, man, I'm staying away from Higbee, man. You're right. He was on the rise, and no one was talking about Everett. That's a great point, Corey. Great point.
All day, and it goes to expectations. And so for my third beer that I'm dumping out, it's going to be Drake, man, Kenyon Drake. And Kenyon Drake is like that beer that your friends have been hyping up all year. This was supposed to be the best new Oktoberfest in years. You had to pay up at least a 4th-round price in Dynasty startups to get it. This Oktoberfest was part of a great brand that usually produces running back 1 numbers. And just last season, it was a huge hit. Drake saw at least 70% snap share and 4.4 targets per game in his 8 games in the desert in 2019. This year, it seems like the brewing company, a.k.a. Cliff Kingsbury, has added licorice and fruit flavors that just don't blend. Drake's snaps have been under 70% each game through 5 weeks, and he's only seen 6 total targets through the air. Kingsbury has always wanted the air raid offense to thrive. Last season, he made an adjustment to a run-heavy scheme, mostly to patch up holes along the offensive line and to protect his young quarterback. But now with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins' flavor this offseason and the growth of Murray, Kingsbury is sticking to his preferred recipe. While the brewery as a whole is going to thrive, Drake Oktoberfest won't be coming back after this 1-year deal. So when you buy a variety pack and one of those beers is not what you really like, find yourself a willing trade partner who has a lager or a pilsner that you know you will enjoy. Given the injuries this season and the fact that this week there are buys for Josh Jacobs, Chris Carson, and Alvin Kamara, chances are other teams in your league are more than willing to take your Oktoberfest off your hands for future assets or for a Chi-Town lager in the form of David Montgomery or a Pittsburgh Pilsner that never disappoints in James Conner. Just because the beer is trendy doesn't mean you have to drink it.
That's facts. Kingsbury Brewing Company definitely added a nice hop to that company.
Indeed.
Oh, I like that. I like that indeed. Some D-hop.
So
don't forget, like and subscribe to this video. Thank you for tuning in. I am Corey. You can find me at Twitter at cdotFF.
And I am James Kriess. You can find me at FF_chef on Twitter.
And I am Juan Carlos Pena, and you can find me at FF One of a Kind.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.